The hum of the hospital was a constant symphony, a melody of beeping machines, hushed conversations, and the squeak of rubber-soled shoes on linoleum floors. For Nurse Emily, it was the soundtrack of her life. Tonight, however, the familiar rhythm felt off-key, each note a little sharper, a little more draining. After a grueling 14-hour shift in the oncology ward, every part of her ached with a profound exhaustion that went bone deep. She felt like a frayed wire, one spark away from snapping. As she finally clocked out, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. The fluorescent lights overhead blurred into long, hazy streaks. She leaned against the cool wall of the corridor, her legs feeling like jelly. The floor rushed up to meet her, and the world faded to black. The next thing she knew, she was blinking up at the concerned faces of her colleagues, a scratchy hospital blanket tucked around her. The diagnosis was simple but stark: severe exhaustion and dehydration. The healer had become the patient. Lying in that hospital bed, a wave of guilt washed over Emily. She was supposed to be the one taking care of others, not the one being taken care of. She thought of her patients, especially Mr. Harrison, a gentle elderly man she'd grown particularly close to during his long battle with cancer. He was a retired gardener who spoke of roses and peonies with the same love a parent speaks of their child. She had held his hand through painful treatments, shared stories to distract him, and celebrated every small victory with him. He was discharged just last week, a bittersweet farewell. Days blurred into a slow, frustrating recovery. The hospital, once her domain of purpose, now felt like a prison. The endless quiet was a stark contrast to the controlled chaos she thrived in. One afternoon, as she stared blankly at the ceiling, a soft knock echoed at her door. She expected a colleague, maybe a food tray. But when the door opened, her breath caught in her throat. There stood Mr. Harrison. He looked stronger, his cheeks had a touch more color, and he was leaning on a cane instead of a walker. But it wasn't just his presence that was surprising. In his arms, he held the most magnificent bouquet of sunflowers she had ever seen, their golden faces so bright they seemed to pull the very sunlight into the sterile room. He shuffled in, his eyes twinkling with a familiar kindness. "Heard my favorite nurse was a little under the weather," he said, his voice raspy but warm. "Figured you could use some cheering up." Emily was speechless. Tears welled in her eyes as he placed the vibrant bouquet on her bedside table. It was more than just flowers. It was a symbol of life, of hope, of the very thing she fought to give her patients every single day. Mr. Harrison then pulled out a worn leather-bound book. "And I brought you something to read," he added. It was a collection of classic poems, the same one he used to read from during his long nights in the ward. He had marked the page with a pressed flower. He didn't stay long, knowing she needed her rest. But his visit was like a powerful dose of medicine no doctor could prescribe. It was a reminder of why she did what she did. It wasn't about the long hours or the physical toll. It was about the human connection. It was about the Mr. Harrisons of the world. He had seen her not just as a caregiver, but as a person who also needed care. That evening, a fellow nurse came in to check on her. "You have a visitor," she said, smiling. It was Mr. Harrison again. This time, he was carrying 2 containers of steaming soup. "My wife's secret recipe," he announced proudly. "Guaranteed to cure anything." They sat together, sharing the soup, the silence comfortable and filled with unspoken gratitude. He didn't just bring her food. He brought her companionship when she felt most alone. The next day, the surprises continued. Mr. Harrison arrived with a small portable speaker and played soft classical music, the kind she had once played for him to help him relax. He talked about his garden, about the new buds on his rose bush, painting a picture of life and growth outside her hospital window. He was, in his own gentle way, nursing her back to health, using the same tools of compassion and distraction she had used with him. As Emily grew stronger, she realized the profound impact of his kindness. Her burnout wasn't just physical. It was emotional. She had been pouring from an empty cup for so long. Mr. Harrison, with his sunflowers, His poems and his soup was refilling it drop by drop. He was reminding her of the goodness in the world and the importance of her work. On the day of her discharge, as she packed her small bag, Mr. Harrison walked in one last time. He wasn't carrying anything, he just came to walk with her. As they stepped out into the fresh air, he handed her a single perfect rose from his own garden. "For the gardener of people," he said softly. At that moment, Emily understood. The care she had given him hadn't just disappeared. It had been planted, taken root, and was now blooming back at her, tenfold. His simple acts of kindness transformed her. They reignited the passion that had been dimmed by exhaustion. She returned to her job not as a weary worker, but as a healer who had been healed, with a renewed sense of purpose and a deeper understanding of the reciprocity of care. This story is a beautiful reminder that compassion is never a one-way street. The kindness we extend to others often finds its way back to us when we need it most. It reminds us to see the humanity in everyone, especially those who dedicate their lives to caring for us. So let's remember our healers, our helpers, our everyday heroes. A small act of gratitude can be the very thing that keeps their light shining. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that celebrates the best of humanity. Stay kind, and we'll see you in the next video.